Good day and greetings from Toronto, Canada. My name is Paul Yeskoo, and I'm joined today by Chuckles, or Chuck, and by Willow, who have joined me to be my inspiration for an illustration that will come about a little bit later as we explore the Advent word of today, bountiful. As is my custom, usually when I'm looking at something relatively new to me, I start with some of the basics, and in this particular case I check the dictionary to see what bountiful really means in terms of its usage in today's world. And I found in three different dictionaries the following definitions. The first definition in the three was given or provided abundantly. The second dictionary, large in amount. And the third, large in quantity or abundant. And then I was rather startled by the second definition found in all three, and that was the following: liberal or generous in bestowing gifts or favors. Secondly, generous in giving to others. And thirdly, giving generously. So in other words, bountiful means that, at least to me, it means that we have so much blessing, so much material or emotional or spiritual gains in our lives, thanks to our relationship with God and through Jesus Christ. But at the same time, a second definition of bountiful is that we have, in essence, a responsibility or an opportunity to share, as Gus pointed out this week, to share that blessing and that bountiful provision that God has given us with others. And that's where it got me thinking, how do we go from the position of being the recipient and the recipient of God's blessing and bountiful nature, but how do we get to the point where we share that with others? Some of the other Advent words of the day that folks have shared have gone into that and talked about the different things and different ways that we can indeed share God's bounty and bountifulness with others. And I wanted then to just talk a little bit about how these two inspired me to remember an illustration about how we get from one place to another, how we get across that finish line, how we get across, in this case, the river. So I'd like you to join me in this illustration as we consider how to go from having God's bounty in our lives to sharing it with others. And I'd like you to just follow me along. I'm just going to take a piece of paper, and this illustration happens to be a puzzle. And so I'm just going to cut up three pieces of paper, or into three pieces here, and another three over here. And we're going to take, once again, the inspiration of a dog and a cat, and we're going to take three pieces of paper who are going to represent three dogs. And we're going to take another three pieces of paper that represent three cats. And I've very simply just written D for dog and C for cat. Follow me here. These dogs and cats are trying to cross the river Vaal. And again, they're not so good at swimming, so they're going to use a canoe. However, they are very good at paddling. And so, consequently, as we move these dogs and cats across the river, we have to remember that, at least in North America, usually the dog happens to be dominant. I realize in South Africa you've got some big cats out there. But in this particular case, we're just looking at the dogs as being dominant. So, two things, two rules. One is that one of the animals has to paddle across the river, but at neither side can there be more dogs than cats. So this puzzle, I'm going to leave it with you. I'll just demonstrate a couple of ways that we could do this. If we took one dog and one cat, put them in the canoe, excuse me, if we take one dog and one cat and put them in the canoe, we go across the river, and let's say the cat drops off. But in this case, the dog paddles back, and guess what? We've got 3 dogs and 2 cats on one side of the river. Can't do that. But then let's start again, and we're going to take a dog and a cat, and this time we're going to leave the dog. The cat comes over, and that's fine. And then another cat and another dog get into the canoe. They go across the river, and unfortunately, at this side of the river, there are 2 dogs and 1 cat. Also won't fly. I guess in this particular case, I'm going to leave this puzzle with you. Again, feel free to think about it. Again, there are only a couple rules. One is that one of the animals has to actually paddle, but the other rule is that you can't have more dogs than cats at one side. The objective is to get everybody across the river. Why am I looking at this particular puzzle, and why does it remind me of God's blessing? Well, in this particular case, on this side, we have our status as blessed by God with a bountiful life. The other side is how we move towards sharing, particularly as we consider the Advent season. Again, we've heard a lot about it from Wendy and others this Advent season in their words for the Advent words for the day. And they've done a tremendous job in explaining the many blessings we have and the many ways that we can share with others. But I'm reminded of Father Mishak when he mentioned on the 12th and in the service that he had a parishioner who had intentionally decided, how am I going to be able to share God's blessing, particularly, I believe, at the Advent season. And it was that word that Father Mishak used, intentional, that was very impressive to me. And I think in this particular case, I want you to, or I want us to think, how can we share the blessings, the bountifulness of God with others in keeping with the meaning of bountiful. There are a couple scriptures I'd like to just share with you. Psalm 116:12 states, "What will I give the Lord for all his blessings or bountifulness towards me?" Because he's given, again, so much to us. That's on this side. On the other side, Proverbs 22:9 reads, "He that hath a bountiful eye shall be blessed, for he giveth of his bread to the poor." And just a reminder that in James, the Lord has indeed pointed out that in James 2, verse 5, "Listen, my dear brothers, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised those who love him?" And again, this is just a reminder that you don't have to be rich to be sharing. You don't have to be materially wealthy to share, because it is things like faith, trust, belief, conviction that even children can share with us. They can move across the river just as we can and should, in accordance with God's plan for our lives. So, with that, I'll leave you to moving across the river, just as an object lesson, I believe, in how we as Christians, as believers, can move from our state of being blessed, having a bountiful life in Jesus Christ, but also then to moving across the river with intentionality and looking for those opportunities to share. And with that, I wish you a very warm and wonderful Advent season. Again, greetings from Toronto, and from my little bountifulness. We lost Willow, but Chuck and I and my family wish you all indeed a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.